I never imagined that a single sentence could unravel my entire relationship. It happened on a quiet Tuesday night when my girlfriend, Emily, looked at me with teary eyes and said, "If you truly love me, you'll help me pay my $35,000 tuition debt." Something in her voice didn't feel right. Every time I asked for documents or proof, she dodged the question, shifted the topic, or accused me of not trusting her. The more she avoided it, the heavier the pressure in my chest became. It felt like standing at the edge of a dark hallway, knowing something was waiting at the end, but having no idea what it was. That moment, her deflection, her sudden defensiveness, her insistence on blind trust, was the first crack in everything I thought I knew about us. I just didn't realize then how deep that crack would go. Emily's request didn't just surprise me, it shook something loose inside me that I couldn't ignore. The night she first mentioned the debt, she spoke casually, like asking for a glass of water, not $35,000. She sat on the couch, scrolling on her phone, then suddenly turned to me and said, "Baby, I really need your help. My student loans are drowning me. If you love me, you'll help me pay them off." I froze. Not because of the money, but because of the way she phrased it, like love was a currency, and she was ready to cash it in. Still, I tried to stay calm. I asked what any reasonable person would ask. "Can I see the loan statements?" That was the moment everything changed. Her expression snapped from soft to sharp, as if I had insulted her. She pulled her legs up, crossed her arms, and said, "Wow, really? You think I'm lying? You don't trust me at all." Her tone rose with every word, turning the living room into a pressure chamber. I blinked, confused. All I wanted was clarity. But instead of handing me a document, she launched into a monologue about her difficult past, her struggles, how nobody had ever supported her, how every man before me had let her down. She painted herself as someone constantly taken advantage of, someone who finally found a safe place with me. And somehow, asking for paperwork made me the villain. I tried again, gently this time. "Emily, I'm not accusing you of anything. I just want to understand what you're dealing with." She got up, paced the room, and started wiping non-existent tears. Then came the guilt tripping. "You know what? Forget it. I shouldn't have asked. I should have known you're like everyone else. Maybe I'll just figure it out alone." She headed for the bedroom, as if expecting me to chase after her. I sat there for a long minute, staring at the half-empty glass of water on the table, and wondering why something as simple as a loan statement caused such an explosion. Eventually, I followed her. She was lying on her side, facing away, curled up dramatically. I apologized, though I wasn't sure for what, and told her I just wanted to help. She sniffed and whispered, "Then trust me." Those two words echoed in my head. Not "here's the proof." Not "let me show you." Just "trust me." And yet, she still wouldn't show a single piece of paper. Over the next week, I brought it up 3 more times, each attempt ending in an argument. One night, she accused me of planning to break up with her. Another night, she said I was treating her like a criminal. And by the third night, she refused to talk to me unless I dropped the subject entirely. That was when the doubts grew roots. Why would someone in real financial stress avoid transparency? Why did she react with fear instead of relief when I offered to help, just with questions? It felt like the truth was a door she didn't want me to open. And the more she pushed me away, the more I felt that something huge, something ugly, was hiding right behind it. I reached a point where I couldn't keep guessing anymore. The tension in the apartment was constant, like a low electrical hum that never stopped. Emily avoided the topic entirely, and every time I tried to bring it up, she either cried, yelled, or stormed out. I started to feel like I was losing my grip on reality. Was I overreacting? Was I being paranoid? Or was something truly hidden behind all that emotional smoke? One night, after another argument that ended with Emily slamming the door and disappearing for hours, I decided I needed real answers. I reached out to a forensic accountant, Someone trained to uncover financial inconsistencies, fraud, hidden accounts, anything that didn't line up. I felt guilty doing it, but I also felt trapped. If I was going to hand over tens of thousands of dollars, I needed to know what I was getting into. I gave him what little information I had. Her full name, birth date, the loan company she mentioned once in passing, and the amounts she claimed she owed. He told me he'd look into public records, loan databases, and payment histories. I didn't expect anything dramatic. I honestly thought he'd come back and tell me I was overthinking. 3 days later, he called me. His voice was calm, professional, but the first sentence made my stomach drop. "There's something you need to see." We met at his office that afternoon. He slid a folder across the desk, thick with printed pages and highlighted lines. I opened it slowly, expecting numbers that added up to $35,000. Instead, the first page showed a total of $8,700. $8,700. That was her real student loan balance. I blinked at the number, convinced I was misreading it. He then handed me another page, this one showing a completely separate loan. A $26,000 auto loan for a BMW. The name listed under primary driver was Emily. It was a man named Dylan Carter. Her ex. The same ex she swore she had blocked, hated, and never wanted to see again. My hands went cold. The accountant explained that Emily had co-signed the loan, or possibly taken it out entirely under her own credit, allowing Dylan to use the car as if it were his. And the monthly payments matched almost perfectly with the money she had been asking and pressuring me to give her recently. Meaning, I wasn't helping her with tuition. I was subsidizing her ex-boyfriend's BMW. I felt sick. A mix of anger, betrayal, and humiliation all hit me at once. The accountant continued, pointing out irregular payments, missed installments, late fees, things she had probably been desperate to cover before the car got repossessed. The deeper I looked, the clearer the pattern became. Emily wasn't drowning in student debt. She was drowning in a mess she created with someone she still had connections to. And she was using me to keep it all from collapsing. I left the office holding the folder like it was evidence in a crime scene. Because at that point, that's exactly what it felt like. Every instinct I had ignored suddenly made sense. Every emotional outburst, every deflection, every guilt trip. It was all designed to keep me from discovering the truth. And now that I knew it, I could feel the anger building, rising in my chest like fire begging for air. I knew I had to confront her. But I also knew that nothing about that conversation would end quietly. I waited for Emily to get home that night with a kind of cold clarity I had never felt before. The folder from the accountant sat on the coffee table like a bomb waiting to go off. When she walked through the door, she looked tired, annoyed, and already on edge, as if she had prepared herself for another argument I didn't even start yet. She tossed her bag on the counter and said, "What now?" Her tone only fueled the fire inside me. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I simply pointed to the folder and said, "Sit down, we need to talk." She rolled her eyes, but reluctantly took a seat. I opened the folder and turned it toward her. The moment her eyes landed on the printed numbers, her face drained of color. I watched her pupils widen, watched panic creep up her throat like it was choking her. I kept my voice steady. $8,700. That's your student loan balance. She blinked rapidly, shaking her head. That's not, you don't understand. I cut her off and flipped the page. $26,000, a BMW loan, and the primary driver is Dylan Carter. Her eyes darted away instantly, like the words physically burned her. She pressed her palms together, shaking slightly. "Please, it's not what you think." My jaw tightened. "Then explain it, right now." She broke. Tears streamed down her face instantly, so fast and dramatic it felt rehearsed. She stuttered through a story about how Dylan manipulated her, convinced her to help him get the car, promised he would make the payments, then abandoned her with the debt. She said she was scared, embarrassed, ashamed, and didn't know how to tell me because she didn't want me to see her as a failure. I wanted to believe her. Part of me even pitied her. But then I asked the question that shattered everything. Do you still have feelings for him? She paused. Not for a second. Not for two. But long enough for the truth to speak louder than anything she could say. Her silence was a confession. When she finally whispered, "No, I do," it sounded forced, like the words scraped her throat on the way out. I leaned back, exhausted from the emotional weight of the whole thing. "So you used me," I said quietly. "To pay for his car, to cover your mess, to hide everything." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. That broke her composure completely. She started pleading, sobbing, insisting she loved me, that she made a mistake, that she was scared I'd leave if she told the truth. But every word felt like another thread, snapping between us. I stood up and told her she needed to pack her things. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Now. Her voice went from begging to angry in an instant. She accused me of abandoning her, of overreacting, of being cruel. She threw blame in every direction, except the one where it belonged. But none of it mattered anymore. I had reached the end. As she shoved clothes into a bag through tears and curses, the apartment felt like it was finally exhaling, like the storm that had been sitting in the walls for months was finally breaking. When she slammed the door behind her for the last time, the silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, raw, and unfamiliar. But it was the first silence in a long time that felt honest. The night Emily left, I thought the worst was finally behind me. I sat alone in the living room, staring at the door she had slammed, trying to catch my breath. But the silence didn't last long. By morning, my phone was buzzing nonstop. First came the texts, dozens of them, ranging from apologies to long paragraphs blaming me for abandoning her during her lowest moment. When I didn't respond, the tone shifted. The messages turned frantic, then angry, then downright hostile. She accused me of ruining her life, betraying her, and leaving her with no one to turn to. I muted her number, thinking it would calm things down. It didn't. Around noon, emails started pouring into my inbox. Some were desperate pleas, asking me to reconsider. Others were rambling explanations about Dylan, her past, her mistakes. A few were just long strings of insults typed in full caps, as if she had lost control completely. I tried to focus on work, but my hands kept shaking every time my phone lit up. By the second day, she began showing up outside my workplace. She never came inside, but she waited near the parking lot, packing, crying, sometimes shouting my name when she spotted me through the window. Coworkers began asking if I was okay. I forced a smile and lied. But inside, I felt trapped. I knew this wasn't just heartbreak, this was obsession. The situation took an even darker turn on the third day. I received a call from my bank, notifying me of a suspicious credit card application under my name. Someone had attempted to open a new account using my social security number, address, and employment information. My stomach dropped immediately. I didn't need to guess who it was. I called the bank's fraud department, flagged everything, and froze my credit. The representative on the phone gently asked if someone close to me might have had access to my information. I almost laughed from the bitterness rising in my chest. Yes, someone close had access. Too close. That night, my phone rang again, this time from a number I didn't recognize. When I picked up, a deep male voice spoke before I could even say hello. It was Dylan. He said Emily had told him everything. Then, as if it were the most normal thing in the world, he demanded that I continue helping with the BMW payments until he could get back on his feet. I was speechless. He talked like I owed him something, like Emily's manipulation somehow made me responsible for his car. When I told him never to contact me again, he muttered something about being a real man and hung up. I blocked his number immediately. By the end of the week, my phone was a battlefield of missed calls, blocked messages, and warnings from financial institutions about attempted activity on my accounts. The stress started affecting my sleep. I'd wake up at 3 a.m., heart racing, checking my phone to see if another attempt had been made. I felt watched, pursued, hunted. I finally gathered every text, voicemail, email, and bank report and filed a fraud claim. I sent a cease and desist notice. I documented everything in case things escalated. And as exhausting as it all was, it felt like the only way to claw back control of my life. I had ended the relationship, but the aftermath was a storm I didn't see coming. A storm that refused to let go. The chaos didn't stop with the fraud reports or the barrage of messages. In fact, the situation escalated in ways I couldn't have predicted, dragging in people I barely knew and revealing layers of dysfunction far deeper than I imagined. The first surprise came from Ashley, one of Emily's closest friends. She had always been cold toward me, but I assumed it was just her personality. One morning, I opened my work email and found a furious message accusing me of destroying Emily's mental health and threatening to make sure I regretted it. The disturbing part wasn't the message itself, it was the sender address. It was her corporate email, tied directly to her company. I forwarded it to HR, not because I wanted revenge, but because I didn't want my workplace involved in any personal conflict. Within 48 hours, I learned Ashley had been suspended pending investigation for using company resources to send threatening emails. Emily's world was starting to crack, and anyone standing near her seemed to be pulled into the collapse. Around this time, the BMW situation reached a breaking point too. I received another series of texts from an unknown number, this time angry ones. It didn't take long to realize they were from Dylan again, his tone more desperate than before. But I didn't answer, and eventually the attempt stopped. 1 week later, the reason became obvious. A neighbor from Emily's old apartment complex posted a video online showing a tow truck dragging away the BMW as Dylan screamed at the driver. In the background, Emily stood with her arms crossed while he hurled insults at her, calling her useless, pathetic, and a burden. The video spread quickly through local groups. Watching it felt surreal, like seeing the truth of their relationship exposed under a bright spotlight. But the fallout didn't stop there. I received a message from someone claiming to be Emily's mother. She apologized for her daughter's behavior and asked if I was safe. I hesitated to respond, but eventually sent a brief message confirming I was fine. That's when she told me everything. Emily had a history of manipulating people financially. She had previously used her parents' credit without permission, opened accounts in her mother's name, and lied about debts to get money from past partners. Her mother said the family had tried to help, but Emily always found new ways to create chaos and pull others into it. Hearing that made the entire situation make sense in a way that was both heartbreaking and infuriating. Emily hadn't just made a mistake. She had a long pattern of using lies to survive the consequences of her own decisions. Meanwhile, Ashley's suspension turned into a full termination when investigators discovered she had also deleted internal documents while trying to hide the email she sent me. Her career evaporated because she decided to insert herself into a war that was never hers. Dylan vanished from the picture shortly after the repo incident. Some said he moved to another city. Others claimed he was couch hopping, trying to find someone else to fund his lifestyle. And Emily? I later heard she moved back in with her parents after they confronted her about the credit card application she tried to open under my name. Her mother forced her to show the truth, and it triggered a meltdown that apparently lasted hours. The walls she had built, Lies, secrets, manipulations were collapsing faster than she could repair them. What stunned me the most wasn't how quickly everything fell apart, but how fragile it had all been to begin with. It was like watching a tower made of glass shatter in slow motion. The legal consequences began unfolding slowly, almost quietly, like the final echoes of a storm that had already torn everything apart. I had filed every report required: fraud claims, identity theft alerts, credit freezes, and supporting documents. For a while, I didn't hear anything, and a part of me wondered if the system would actually do anything, or if the whole ordeal would fade into bureaucratic limbo. But then the first letter arrived. It confirmed that the attempted credit card application under my name had been officially classified as identity theft. The bank forwarded the case to local authorities, and suddenly, things moved faster than I expected. A detective contacted me, asking for additional statements and digital copies of messages Emily had sent. I provided everything, not out of spite, but because I couldn't let something this serious slide. Identity theft wasn't an impulsive act. It was a deliberate decision to cross a line that should never be crossed. Within weeks, Emily received a notice to appear in court. Her mother reached out again, apologizing repeatedly, explaining that Emily had agreed to a plea deal to avoid jail time. She was given probation, mandatory counseling, and financial restitution for the damage caused to my credit. Her clean record was gone. Her carefully curated image of being the victim of difficult circumstances shattered. She had to face a legal system that refused to be manipulated by tears or excuses. Meanwhile, Dylan's life took its own downward spiral. Once the BMW was repossessed, his social media presence went dark. People who used to praise his success stopped mentioning him. Rumors spread that he lost his job, struggled with debts, and moved in with a cousin several towns away. He disappeared from the orbit of everyone involved, leaving behind the wreckage he contributed to. As for Ashley, the termination from her job hit her harder than I expected. She had spent years building her career, but that single reckless decision, sending threats through a corporate email, destroyed it overnight. The investigation found that she violated multiple company policies, and no firm wanted to hire her after her dismissal. She stopped contacting Emily entirely, choosing to distance herself from the fallout she had helped ignite. While their lives unraveled in different ways, mine slowly began to rebuild. The first real sign of change came when I woke up one morning without checking my phone in a panic. No new threats. No blocked attempts. Just silence, the peaceful kind. I started focusing on myself again. I took a personal finance course to understand how to protect my information, how credit systems worked, and how to prevent anything like this from happening again. The process was strangely empowering, like reclaiming territory I didn't realize I had lost. A month later, I met someone new. Not through drama, not through chaos, but through something simple, an introduction from a coworker during a casual night out. Her name was Lauren. She was calm, steady, the kind of person who asked questions instead of making demands. For the first time in a long while, I felt safe. Not just with her, but with myself. I had walked through manipulation, deceit, and emotional warfare, and somehow emerged clearer and stronger on the other side. I learned how to trust my instincts, how to draw boundaries, and how to prioritize my own stability. By the time my credit reports were clean again, and the last piece of paperwork arrived confirming the identity theft case was closed, I felt like a different person entirely. The chaos had taken months to end, but the peace that replaced it felt solid, earned, and real. I didn't get revenge. I didn't seek punishment. Life handed all of us the consequences meant for us, naturally, inevitably. And all I wanted, after everything, was the simple freedom to start over. In the quiet that followed everything, I realized how different my life felt. There were no more unexpected messages, no more threats, and no more anxiety waiting for the next disaster to unfold. I finally had space to breathe. I spent more time with people who supported me, people who reminded me what stability and respect looked like. Little by little, the weight I had carried for so long began to lift. I stopped replaying old conversations in my head and started imagining new possibilities instead. Healing didn't happen in a dramatic moment. It arrived slowly in small details: a calm morning, an honest conversation, a day without stress. I learned to trust myself again, to recognize red flags before they grew into storms, and to protect the peace I had worked so hard to regain. The chaos that once controlled my daily life became just a memory, distant and dull compared to the clarity I gained afterward. I didn't need closure from anyone else. The closure came from knowing I walked away, rebuilt myself, and chose a better path. And as the final pieces of the past drifted away, I felt ready for whatever came next, grounded in a version of myself I was finally proud of.